Hi there, my name's Andrew Adams from Parker Adams Boat Sales, and I'm with today
Jonathan Parker, and today we're doing a comparison between two boats, two very well-known boats, a Sealine S28, and it's a 2001 model, and
a Targa 29, which is a 1998 model. Two really popular sports cruisers, both from really good quality UK manufacturers, and we're going to do a comparison, jump between the two boats,
do a
see what we
comparison.
think.
First thing to note though is that the newer boat, the Sealine S28, is actually less money than the older Fairline Targa 29.
Yeah.
Now, the Fairline Targa 29 is conceived to be the better quality of the two boats, and it's held its value much better than the Sealine. But we'll let you decide which one you prefer.
Yeah, so one thing that the Sealine have always been really good on is use of space and the way they convert that space into really usable family living. So the comparison between the two, I think, will be really interesting. Yeah. So should we crack on?
Absolutely, yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
Well, the first thing to note when you look at the two boats, the obvious difference is actually the bathing platform. So Nick's on the cameraman today, so we'll try and make sure he keeps up with us. So the bathing platform on the back of the Targa 29 is noticeably bigger. So on this one, you've actually got really quite a deep bathing platform. I reckon you've got over a meter's worth of bathing platform there, as opposed to the S28 where you've got quite a narrow, small bathing platform. Of course, one thing you could do is the snap davits would probably be easier to fit onto the S28 because when you lift the tender up, it'll be pretty much at a vertical angle, whereas on this, it will be almost upside down when you put it on.
Absolutely.
So that's a consideration.
And the other big thing as well is side access. So it's a much easier side access onto the 29 because it sticks out.
Yeah.
And so you feel a bit more comfortable stepping on and off. So yeah, the bathing platform is one, but it does make this longer.
It does.
So this boat is obviously it's a Targa 29 against a 28. So in the name, it is actually just over half a metre longer. It's about 0.6 of a metre longer than the 28.
Yeah.
And a lot of that is that platform.
In fact, I'd say pretty much all of that's the bathing platform, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's
exactly. So it does put it over the 9 metre mark. Well, that stays within. That's just under 9 metres, the S28, and that's over. So you get into that realm of, if you're thinking of mooring the boat, it's actually a slightly cheaper price bracket.
Yep, so the S28 is slightly cheaper, more cost effective and more. So let's jump on board. We'll start off on the 29. Now, the thing to note about both of these boats, we always like upgraded boats. We like boats that have been well cared for, and both of these boats are beautiful examples. In fact, this particular boat was actually a motorboat and yachting, and I think it was the November or October edition, given an example of an owner that's really modernised and done quite a lot of upgrades to his boat. But the upgrades on the 28 are very similar. Step on board and have a look.
Oh, let's go.
So in terms of upholstery on this, both boats have actually gone with a light grey upholstery. So this has all been retrimmed. I quite like the two-tone colour on this boat. You've got a slightly darker upholstery on the outside edge, slightly lighter on the inside. But the feel of it, I think this boat feels very modern because of this interior.
And it's just different layout. This is a different layout to the S28. So this, you'll see, has a U-shaped seating, which is nice. So you can have friends all the way around, which is quite sociable. We have a single helm seat up here, but we have a second social seating, which is so you can join basically the driver when you're going along, and it's a nice U-shaped seating there.
And I reckon you'd probably get, well, certainly two, probably three cosy people up there. Put your feet up. I won't do it, got shoes on. Put your feet up on there, and it provides a nice comfy space.
Yep. And there is option with this as well to drop the table down and have that a bathing area.
Yeah.
Sunpad area. Something
you can struggle to go swimming at the back, aren't you?
Well, it's true.
It is.
It's
a good sunpad area. So let's look at the layout. So the layout of the Targa, this is typical Targa. So the Targa style of dashboard, pretty much the same all the way throughout of this generation of Targa. So you've got all your engine data all the way up here. I like the fact that your revs are centralised there and there's a carbon effect behind. And then this very classic Fairline blue, which mirrors the blue hull on this boat. Point to note on the blue hull, blue hulls I think look fantastic, but they do require a bit of maintenance. So every year you'll need to give it quite a deep polish, particularly of this age, just to keep that blue from blooming. Whereas on the Sealine having the white hull, I'd say it's a slightly lower maintenance hull on that one.
Yeah, you've got to keep the waxing up together as well, because polishing, you tend to find 20 years of polishing takes a lot of the gel off. Yep. So keeping on top of the waxing through the season and just doing another layer of wax really protects it over the years. Yeah. But this has had a couple of upgrades, so steering wheel in particular, and this nice plotter. Actually, it's not a bad position. I'm not always a fan of plotters being mounted on top of a dashboard because they get in the way of your view, they get in the way of everything. That one's okay. This has been upgraded as well. This isn't original. So this actually just gives it that. Normally by now the chrome is sort of pitted a little bit and things like that, but it actually makes this feel a lot more modern by having these more modern controls on here.
I do like little touches like all the switches have been updated. It just makes the dash feel more modern. And you do have on this boat one big addition over the S28, which is a bow thruster. So bow thrusters, of course, can be retrofitted. And don't look at it too much of a negative, because I quite often say on a boat which is 20 years old, having a bow thruster, not having a bow thruster isn't the end of the world, because you can get one fitted and then you've got a brand new bow thruster. But this one has already got one.
Absolutely. Should we go and look at the layout down below?
Well, should we go across the cockpit? So then it's fresh.
Should we go
let's
cockpit,
go across
cockpit
the cockpit across on the S28, and then we'll get a complete direct comparison.
Good idea, Mr. Adams.
So actually, it's quite interesting, Jonathan. You mentioned that the access on the bathing platform is better on that boat. I agree because of its depth, but actually you've got quite a big step on to get, even though you're stepping onto platform. On the S28, actually, it wraps around a little bit closer. So it's less of a jump to get on, even though it's a bit narrower.
You're right. It's a shorter step, but it's a little bit more precarious.
Yeah, I agree with that. The other thing to note on this one is that on the Targa 29, there's original teak. It's in nice condition, but this boat has actually had a full replacement synthetic teak put down, and it looks really, really fresh. So this boat, I would say, certainly has the edge in terms of the flooring between the two boats. So let's step on.
Come on. But straight away, the cockpit area, you can see this feels a little bit smaller, this lower section. It's not a U shape, it's two benches. It feels a little bit tighter, and although this is a nice big table, it does feel it's a little bit in the way. And it's a little bit awkward to store away. It does flip up, you can tie it to there, but you then have to remove the leg as well to get it away, just to make it a bit more comfortable. Yeah.
One feature I do like, it's difficult to show you today, but one of the things I do like though is that on the S28 the covers all go up into this track. So if you look upwards, Nick. So if you look up here, you've got the track here. Now what happens is the covers just fold in on the edges and then lift all the way up into there. So it actually stores the covers nicely out of the way. Whereas on the Targa 29, you have to store them manually. Probably put them downstairs.
Have you ever tried to do that though?
It's tight, but it can be done.
Yeah, it's not the best fun, but it can be done. Also worth noting though, this table can drop down as well, and it drops down into this section, and this can be made into a sunbathing area as well.
On this boat, I didn't see a wet bar. Don't think there's a wet bar on the Targa 29.
Didn't see one, no.
Didn't see one. So on here you have hot and cold water here, and then you also have just in here a fridge. Now this is a new fridge that was added in the last couple of years, and obviously hot and cold running water I think is quite a benefit in a cockpit space there.
And that's what's made this area slightly smaller, because you've got this extra bit sticking out, which is the fridge and the wet bar.
What I do like though, I said you could lay down up there on the next one. In terms of the layout, it's interesting here because you've got a twin helm position on this side, and then probably seating for three on that side, but not on the direction of travel. But it does create a really nice chaise longue, and it's padded at the back, and actually that's a really nice place just to sit and chill. Imagine a nice afternoon in Yarmouth, sitting reading a book, watching the world go by.
It's always nice to have a lounger like that.
It's nice, isn't it?
Yeah, it is really nice. And this is double helm seat, so we're now at a double helm seat as well. Yeah. So which is a benefit if it's mainly couples to take the boat out, so your partner can sit next to you while you're going along. And again, the dash is in this dark blue. It's pretty much exactly the same blue as on the Targa, but you can see the instrumentation is laid out completely differently. Where the Targa instrumentation is a lot of it's at the back, this is right in front of your vision. And again, it's had upgraded steering wheel, and this is probably a replacement over the years, but it would have been very similar to this as the original, or they would have had the black CADs Volvo ones, but it's been upgraded again to the chrome.
So one of the things that we wanted to do in this is sort of say which one we prefer. Although I'm a big Fairline Targa man, I have to say I think I prefer the cockpit space on the S28. One of the things I would say on the Targa 29 is it's got exactly the same layout as something like the Targa 34, but it's all a little bit smaller and it feels a little bit more crammed in. Whereas actually I think this having a totally different layout, where you've got a lounger area, twin helm I think is a big bonus. On a long journey, being able to sit next door to your partner, perhaps you've got your kids over on this side, and then seating at the back. So for me personally, I'm having the S28 slightly ahead on cockpit.
It's weird, I was leaning towards the 29.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, the big thing I prefer about this is basically having a fridge in the cockpit.
Yep, true.
It just saves leaves you going up and down to the sea. But I do like the U shape at the back.
Yes, makes sense.
I do like that. But yes, but this has still got original nav.
Yep.
It hasn't had the upgrade here, but this is because this has a radar. So this boat has a radar where the Targa doesn't, and it still uses the original radar, so it needs to use this old system. But the current owner has added another chart plotter, as you can see up there, for a more modern Raymarine hybrid touch system up there as well. So it's got the best of both, and that can actually be controlled from the steering wheel.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, so it's got a little touch button on there, so you can control it from here.
Oh, yeah.
As you can see, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm
It's
pressing
moving.
buttons.
It's moving,
I'm
so it's
pressing
working.
buttons and it's going up and down. Obviously, it's a bit of a stretch otherwise, so it's
Yeah.
quite useful. You can zoom in and out and go through a couple of options on there.
Cool. So I think since we're on this boat, let's go and do the interior of this one, then we'll go across the 29. So we'll mix it up on this too. So let's step down. First thing to note going down into the S29, the way that Sealine use their space very well is that you quite often end up with quite steep steps, and that's the same on this boat. It's quite steep to get down there, but you've got good grab handles, and it does mean that you get more space once you're down below. So come on down. So first thing to note down here is that the wood is a really nice light wood. It's quite interesting that Fairline were going quite a lot of dark wood around this time, but the Sealines have always stayed true to this slightly lighter finish, and it does make a more airy cabin space. In terms of the seating area down here, if the weather was horrible and you wanted to have your dinner down here, nice family of 5-6 people would comfortably
Yeah, it's a
sit down
large
here.
seating area,
It is big, isn't it?
which then doubles as a large second bed,
Yeah.
because this will again convert into a second bed. So it is a nice size for that.
And a lot of families, if they're going away on these style of boats for a long period of time, then actually they'll leave this made up as a double bed. So perhaps you've got your kids or another family in the back, and then use this. So this becomes a bedroom / kitchen area, which is quite nice. But I like the way this is all upholstered, and in terms of condition-wise, this is all lovely. All of the upholstery here is all excellent. There's no rips, tears, marks, or anything.
Yeah, it's a good size.
It is good. And then in terms of the galley area, so we'll just spin around here into the galley. So galley space is good. You've got a twin sink, which I think is quite unusual on this size. I can't remember on the 29, so I'll have a look in a minute.
That's what we're going to do in a minute. We're going to do a
But
comparison.
there's double there, and then under here you've got a double gas hob that taps up into there. It's very functional, very usable. You've got your gas oven underneath, and of course storage lockers in here.
And a second fridge.
And a second fridge.
So we've got 2 fridges on board here. So should we whip back to the Targa?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, should we do back cabin as well? No, you want to do the back cabin last?
Yeah. Let's
Go
get
on,
lost.
let's
Let's go back. Let's go back.
Go on then, Nick.
Let's go, Nick. Go, go, go. It's like Challenge Annika.
It is.
All right, here we go. Jump back on. Platform, back through the straight away. I don't think this is big. This feels bigger to me. This cockpit.
It feels wider, but I don't think it's as long.
Just feels that a little bit. And same sort of step arrangement actually. Oh, weirdly,
Go on.
Fairline, it's right. No, it's right, left, right. The Sealine was left, right, left.
I'm dyslexic, so there's no way in hell I'll remember what side I've gone. I'll be
It's
honest.
the stairs because they're off.
But again, no, John, there's absolutely right. They are pretty steep to go down there. But again, that's how they maximise the space in here. First thing I would note is I would say there's significantly more headroom here. When you're sat down at this height, you're taller than I am, so would you say this feels a bit taller here? It feels a bit bigger?
Yeah, there's a significant difference. I think this feels a bit harder.
Yeah, okay.
I think the Sealine was softer seating.
More plush.
And it was longer.
Yep.
Is it longer? Is not that much different. This feels slightly different. It's not. This is wider actually.
Yeah, I'd say it's wider.
This is wider. This end's wider because I think the Sealine sort of ended about here. So I think this part of the bed, when it's converted, would be wider.
I would say height-wise, I think it's a bit taller. It
I think
feels
so.
a little bit taller on there. Something to note on terms of the differences of these two boats that, of course, are both for sale with us at the moment is the carpet is slightly better on the Targa 29, so this has had a new carpet put throughout it as part of its sort of updating and refitting process. So that's quite nice. And then in terms of the galley area, I would say the galley area on this is a little bit more Spartan, perhaps, is that where it's a bit?
But it's laid out exactly the same. You've got the fridge in the same place, the oven in the same place. Is there a hob underneath?
So
the
hob's under there.
dehumidifier?
The only thing I would say though is it does only have the single sink,
Single
which
sink.
we noticed when we had a Fairline Phantom 40. We only had a single sink, and it was a pain for washing up because you never really knew quite where to put everything else. So it's a shame it's only got one. But apart from
It's
that,
interesting. The
layout's similar.
Sealine feels a little bit more to it.
Yeah.
I think
agree
with
that.
the wood finishes, I think they had a few more different contrasting materials.
Yep.
It feels a little bit, I dare say it, a little bit more luxurious
Yeah,
than the Targa 29.
I would agree with that totally. Yeah, it is. I guess with having the surfaces, which there's a lot of GRP down here,
Yeah.
whereas in the Sealine, where the GRP is, it was actually wood, which is nice.
Well, it's got the modern Fusion stereo up here, which is quite a nice touch.
Yep, nice.
Nice little upgrade, rather than a cassette player.
Yes, that's
You
true.
probably would have had in 1998.
So where
Diesel
were we?
heating on both.
Yes.
If you've got running, thankfully, because it's freezing at the
It is
moment.
freezing.
Are we going to do this?
I know.
We'll do
Yeah,
this.
since we're here,
We'll
go
go
for
there.
it.
Cabins.
Cabins.
Rear cabins. It's all about the rear cabin, because this is the cabin that you will want to spend most of your overnights in, because you want to try and keep the forward seating when you can. There's a nice little seat when you come in, and then you've got the double bed under. So the things to note about when you do look at these cabins is what it's like, obviously how the width of it, so whether you can get two adults down here, which you can, it's almost laid out with two singles.
Yep.
And then it's height.
Yeah. Can you sit up in
So
bed?
can you sit up in bed? You can, but my head's against it.
But then I guess you'd be probably bolstered at the back there, wouldn't you, against the headrest?
Yeah, but then is it comfortable to sit up in the morning?
Yep.
It is for one person. I think the second person, it's okay, you can sit here with a cup of coffee quite happily. There's also there's a shelf right at the end and some storage, which again is quite good to have that extra bit of storage and a window at the back.
Okay.
A bit of wardrobe, let's just see if it drops down. It does, it drops down. So you got a bit of, you can put shirts and things like that in there. And obviously it's a small seat to take note. There is a heater outlet in here as well.
Something that I've just noticed is it's not a Jack and Jill arrangement on the
No.
heads. Now, what I mean by that is I would have expected to have seen a door there, because if you're having a family down here and another family in here, you'd want to go straight through rather than disturb them.
Well, that's the difference between the Targa 29 and the Targa 30.
Got you.
So they
made
changed
an
it on the
arrangement.
30 to do Jack and Jill, and the S28 has Jack and Jill.
Yeah,
So
I think that's a big
that's
benefit.
one of the differences.
So while we're here, let's have a look at the heads. So the heads, of course, so that's, well, you know what, they could have done Jack and Jill there. There's nothing on that bulkhead. That's a shame they didn't think about that. But it's nice in here, it's quite cosy, but it's, again, much like the rest of the boat, there's lots of GRP in here, but it looks clean and fresh. And actually, it looks pretty modern in there, actually.
It looks like a usable shower as well, because you've got the headroom at the shower section. It looks like a usable shower, although anything this sort of size is a bit tight.
You can just about stand there, can't
And
you?
there's a curtain which will go, it's not fitted, but there's a rail just above the door, so you'll protect the door, the rest of it will be a wet room.
Okay, right.
Right, let's do it.
So let's
Next.
run across back to the
S28.
S28.
It's just keeping me warm though, because it is cold today.
We're in Dusseldorf. We were at the Dusseldorf boat show last weekend. It was much colder out there as well. So
It was.
It was quite nice to come back to a slightly milder
Did a lot
UK.
of running then as well.
We did. Yeah, 18,500 steps we did on the Saturday at the Dusseldorf boat show. There's lots of walking around. So
Right,
let's go back down here.
right. I suppose for size, look, left, right, left.
See, I've already forgotten what the other one was, so don't ask me.
Right, come on, come down. You're gonna have to come down.
That's right,
And then straight away, the Sealine door into the cabin. That's a bit tighter.
It's interesting. You sort of have to
There's
step
a
over the step there, don't
There's
you?
a step over, and you can't get the door any wider than that.
Okay.
So it does straight away feel a little bit more. You know, and if you were,
I
I'm 6
was
foot.
about to say if you were any larger.
Any larger than sure a few months ago I would have got in there a bit easier. Right, and there's no seat in here.
Okay.
There's no seat, which is the first thing I'll note. And then we've got the bed. There are a load of cushions there. There's all the infill cushions are here, and there's a solar panel. And it's got a solar panel.
It does go for solar
It's
panel.
got a solar panel. But I would say the bed itself is about the same width.
Yep.
I would say there's no window, there's no shelf, there's no storage at the end. It is just finished off, and there's a door there, which basically just probably a bit of storage. But there's a window here. And I would say sitting up though, this is
you look more comfortable. Yeah,
it's a bit more of a backrest on here.
Sit up there with a cup of coffee in the morning more easily than you could on the 29.
And there's also a heating outlet in here, but definitely more. But I'd say there's less headroom if you're underneath.
Yep.
So I can't physically, look, if I was to try and sit up, where it was just touching the top of my head in the other one, I'm like, it's only up to my chest.
Yep.
So I'd say significantly feels more spacious on the 29.
Yep.
And I think I prefer the 29, even though I haven't got as much backrest room.
Interesting. Makes sense.
It just feels more of a cabin than this does.
And then we're talking about the Jack and Jill doors. So, of course, this is the door that, in my opinion, is missing from the 29, which I think is a shame.
Yep.
So if I go through into here, then we've got pretty much a standard layout. It's slightly reversed. So on the Targa, the toilet was there and the sink there. But on this one, it's the other way around. But you've got some nice touches there. You've got lots of storage. I would say there's more storage space on this boat in all places. So there's more storage in the heads, more storage in the galley, and more storage generally. But that's a similar layout, and I'd say a similar size there.
Yeah.
So just have another quick look around the galley there. Definitely I prefer the feel. It's warmer, it's cosier. It feels more luxurious.
What it is. It's warm. It's slightly warmer.
Awesome. So if I spin that back round, I'm just going to hand that back to Nick, and then we'll wrap up. So I am struggling to know which one of these boats I prefer, because you've got yourself a £10,000 saving, which is a huge amount of money, and still a very capable boat. We haven't mentioned they're both powered by the same engines. So they've both got the CAD 32 Volvo Penta engines developing 170.
Yep.
And I reckon the performance would be quite good to do a drag race, but I'm not sure if the owners would be happy with us doing that.
That's true.
I reckon performance around about 30 knots, would you say, for both boats?
Yeah, these are the sort of boats that, with the CAD 32s in, they'll be one of the most economical 30-foot twin-engine boats you can have. They're four-cylinder diesel engines, 170 horsepower each, but they're not massively well-performing engines. So they will get you up on the plane, they'll get you going, they'll get you close to sort of around 30 knots when it's perfectly clean.
Yep.
And what you'll find through the season, though, that it will reduce in speed quite a lot. You might lose 5 or 6 knots through the season. So you might end up cruising around the sort of 20, 21 knot mark, just to keep it still economical, and then flat out maybe 24 knots by the end of the season. Yep. One thing we haven't talked about, though, is which is it was always quite important on boats this size, is actually side access.
Yes.
So when you walk around the sides, it's a difficulty. On a lot of American boats, you've got to go through the windscreen. Yeah. It might be quite good to just have a quick look, just to finish off, because and also the S28 has bow cushions as well.
Yep.
And the first thing you do is when you want to go around the side decks is actually see what access you have. Now the S28 has actually made a couple of steps to then enable you to get onto the port side. There's also, if you can see, there's a single step on the top there to enable you to get onto the starboard, but it's always that bit more awkward. So you would normally aim for this side, and I think it's as simple as just unclipping. And then it's always, how precarious is it? So the Sealine, they've actually given you an inside handle, so you can swing yourself round. So it might be worth you coming out, Nick. That's it. So there's an inside handle, you swing yourself round, step up, and then there's an outside handle you can grab on. So I can grab hold the inside and the outside at the same time. And then this handle actually runs all the way down along the top of the screen, all the way to here. And it's when you get here, this rail then increases in height. So then actually walking round becomes quite easy. And then you've got the bow cushions up the front, with a very large area for bow cushions as well. And then you've got access to the anchor, and the anchor's actually pocketed away on the Sealine, so it doesn't add any length to the boat, this anchor, and also it's neatly stowed away and controlled by buttons up at the top here. So it's quite a nice, easy way to get around the boat. Yeah,
I like that, having that guardrail sort of built into that. You don't really notice it's there, but actually that gives you a huge amount of security and safety when you're out doing fenders. And
it's got the radar arch, same slope back as the Targa. It's got a bit of shape to it. I quite like it. And both these sports boats look fantastic with the covers off.
Yeah, they do.
That's what I would say. And you can hold onto that rail and step straight off as well. You need to have a bit of a long leg, but that does work like that as well.
So let's go on around and see what 29 is like to get on the side.
It's interesting to note actually that the way the doors are on the back, because it's a port side door on the Sealine and a starboard side one on the Targa.
Yeah. So,
so your easiest access on the Targa is actually the starboard side, where it was easiest on the port side on the Sealine.
Yep, makes sense. And so, obvious difference, there's basically a step here, but you don't have a grab handle here. And actually, I think that's probably missing one. When you come out of here, I want to naturally put my hand there, but there's not a grab handle. But I think muscle memory will very quickly remember that there is a grab handle all the way around here. So if you're going out from here, then it would be about coming out like that, and then sliding around. But again, I want to put a handle there, and there's not one. The handle's lower. So I have to say, I'm ending up a little bit precarious here. There's a bit of a gap here. So I think it's one of those, when you have the boat and you get used to the boat, you remember how to do it. But personally, I would say access seemed to be much easier for you on that 28.
Not forgetting that you tend to see a lot of add-on handrails and things on boats. So it would be something that would be advisable to get a handrail put on the inside, because it's this kind of, exactly this what you want to do when you're just coming to your berth and you want to start getting the fenders out.
Yep.
And if it's very awkward trying to hold a fender and getting around, then you need to do something about it.
So in terms of getting out, it really is just a case of coming around there and then just moving your weight forward and then walking across, and then keeping the centre of gravity nice and low, and then keeping hold of the guardrails here. Obviously, you normally would have deck shoes on. Don't recommend it with socks, as I've got at the moment whilst I've been going down below. So it's okay, but I would totally agree with Jonathan that you need an extra handle on that guardrail, on the radar arch there, just to give you that security. One of the things I really like on this boat is the fender baskets, particularly when at the back you've got slightly precarious access to get around. Having the ability to put 6 of your fenders here on the bow and go back with your hands free of fenders, I think is really important. But in terms of the bow space, I think it's pretty similar on both boats. This boat could of course have bow cushions fitted. It doesn't at the moment. You can tell it has never had them in the past as well, because you haven't got any little loops for them to store onto, as opposed to the S28, which does. As Jonathan said, totally different arrangement on the bow, where you've got the anchor which is visible from the helm position, whereas it's tucked away underneath on the S28. So let's go back into the cockpit, because it's a bit cold here. So let's go back in and have our sort of final thoughts on the two boats. Right, so again, back to that point of getting around here. It is tricky, you know. It's a bit awkward, isn't it? It is really awkward. So I'm definitely giving points to the S28 in terms of ease of access to get around on there. So let's go back on board, both of us on here, and then we'll just talk through our final thoughts. It is interesting coming on here, because it does, to me, feel like a mini Targa 34, which is no bad thing. The Targa 34 is an awesome boat. But I'm going on cockpit arrangement on the S28, and then down below, personally, I think the S28 has the slight edge in terms of coziness, but practicality of headroom and how it feels is better on here. What do you think? Yeah,
I think I prefer the rear cabin on this one. So even though that's got the Jack and Jill, it just felt tight because it had the Jack and Jill.
Yeah, okay.
And I think they were trying to do a little bit too much in there for the size of the boat, whereas the 29, the door is full-size door, it's got the seat in there, just felt a bit more spacious.
It's interesting. So almost the perfect boat could be a slightly stretched S28. So if the S28 had come in a 29 that had given you just a little bit more space in a few places, you'd have got the seat in the rear cabin, you'd have had the Jack and Jill without needing to climb over the stairs there.
Well, I think you might have just described the Fairline Targa 30.
There is that too.
Because the Targa 30 has stretched it a little bit more, they've heightened it, they've made the rear cabin slightly bigger, and they put the Jack and Jill in.
Maybe it's one for another video, but the thing about the Targa 30, we're going slightly digressing now, is it has the big sort of sun pad area at the back. And I'm never quite sure about that, because it's not quite big enough for you to be able to lay on easily. So it seems to take up a bit of space. So we'll have another look at that. The next Targa 30 we take on, we'll make sure we take special attention to that and compare it against these two boats.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. But they certainly both have their benefits.
They do.
And they certainly are both, you would not be disappointed with either, I don't think.
Yeah, very much so. And they're both boats which have shown that the owners have spent money on them, they've upgraded them in nice ways. So yeah, it's good to see.
No, absolutely, absolutely. And it just goes to show, no matter what brand the boat is, if you do the nice upgrades, then they just look smart, even though that is now nearly 25 years old. Yeah. This one 25. And the Sealine is 22 years old. It really goes to show that you can still make them feel nice and modern.
Absolutely. Cool. Well, I think that's about it now. So thank you as always for watching. Please remember to, as standard YouTube comments, like and subscribe to our videos if you haven't already. And we look forward to seeing you on the next video.
Yeah, see you on the next video. Thanks again.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.